Welcome to the Church in the Wild podcast. You'll be hearing the words from worship from Sunday, April 5th, Easter Sunday, where we conclude our month-long focus on how to live again. If you want to find out more about Church in the Wild and all of our upcoming events and programs, just go to churchinthewild.org. Thanks for listening.
Okay, hi, I'm Barb.
What an intro.
And in thinking about carrying on with life in the aftermath of disasters, I looked into how wildlife is doing in Chernobyl these days. These are the things I think about. And the Russians have been in control of Chernobyl since they invaded the Ukraine in 2022. So not as much information is available as there was before they invaded, but I found out what I could. So after the nuclear reactor disaster at Chernobyl, which was in 1986, an evacuation zone was established, and it was roughly 1,600 square miles that was set up. And everyone was told to leave and evacuate and all of that kind of thing because the radiation levels in that area were, and still are, too hazardous for humans to be around. But since then, the levels have dissipated quite a bit. Some of the half-lives of some of the radioactive elements were pretty short, but some of the other radioactive elements had longer half-lives, so they're still hanging in there. And there's still pockets where there's some pretty concentrated radiation. So the people who were evacuated in 1986, I mean, they were very poor. The area around the Chernobyl reactor was very, very poor. It was just single-family homes that had been, very small homes that were in generation after generation in families, and they just had farms for their own little family. And when they evacuated people, over 1,000 of them came back soon after being evacuated, even though they weren't supposed to, because they were too poor to go anywhere else, basically, and they didn't want to leave their ancestral homes and their family farms, and it was more important for them to keep that than it was to suffer the risks from radiation exposure. And out of that 1,000 that came back or so, there's about 100 to 150 people that still are living in that exclusion zone, they call it, and they're mostly elderly women now, and they're called the babushkas of Chernobyl. They're very elderly now, and they still farm their small plots of radiated soil and eat the crops that they grow there. There's no running water. It's very, very isolated. And in an extreme example that shows the resilience of wildlife in the face of disaster, the wild animal populations that survived in that zone are actually doing better now as a whole than they were before, which surprised me. I did not expect that. But they've actually benefited from it being turned into a radioactive ghost town. And there aren't many people there today, except for those babushkas and research groups, small research groups, and other authorized people, mostly people that are authorized to still work at the plant to keep it protected from more problems. But they're all limited in their exposure times that they're supposed to be there. I think the plant workers work for 15 days and then they leave and then they come back later and things like that. But overall, there's not a lot of people there. So to get this information that these researchers have gotten, they've set up cameras in different parts of the evacuation zone to record and observe the wildlife. And the observations show that the large mammal populations like wolves, elk, boar, bear, lynxes, deer, and dozens of other species are thriving inside of the area. There's a rare European lynx and a rare European brown bear that hadn't been seen in that region for nearly a century, and they're seen there now. And it's obviously not because the radiation is beneficial for them. Their individual lifespans are shorter in many cases, and many of them have visible mutations caused by exposure to the radiation, but the population numbers as a whole are growing. And there's no logging there anymore, there's no large-scale farming taking place, and there's no hunting taking place, so those are all factors. The invertebrates, like the insects and the spiders, have not fared as well, since they lay eggs in the upper soil layers or in the water that's more highly contaminated. Their numbers have gone down significantly. And the frogs and other freshwater animals that are exposed to the sediments being stirred up from the bottom that are laid in with radiation, their numbers are down as well. Amazingly, there's still an abundance of birds in the zone. Some of them are found with mutations like malformed beaks or bent tails. The ones they've picked up have smaller brains, and some have deformed air sacs. And they have less reproductive success than the groups outside of the zone. But the populations on the whole are thriving, and they seem to just be powering through, even with these mutations. So the evacuation zone officially now represents the third largest nature reserve in mainland Europe, and it has become an accidental experiment in rewilding. And it's actually overall a much richer forest ecosystem than it was before the accident, despite the radiation. And it's a sobering thought, but one of the research scientists said that even though the radiation obviously isn't good for the animals, and it's harming their DNA, it was worse for them when there was no radiation, but humans were there. And so, for the most part, they can seemingly push on through the radiation and its harmful effects as long as we leave them alone.
Hi, I'm Dolly, and our poem today is Instructions on Not Giving Up by Limón. More than the fuchsia funnels breaking out of the crabapple tree, more than the neighbor's almost obscene display of cherry limbs shoving their cotton candy-colored blossoms to the slate sky of spring rains. It's the greening of the trees that really gets to me. When all the shock of white and taffy, the world's baubles and trinkets, leave the pavement strewn with the confetti of aftermath, the leaves come out. Patient, plodding, a green skin growing over whatever winter did to us. A return to the strange idea of continuous living despite the mess of us, the hurt, the empty. Fine then, I'll take it, the tree seems to say. A new slick leaf unfurling like a fist to an open palm. I'll take it all.
Okay, I'm taking on the wisdom. Get comfortable. It's a long story. It's not too long, but it's longer than usual. Wisdom comes from the Christian scriptures as found in the Book of Belonging, which is a book full of Bible stories for kids, for kind and contemplative kids, by Mariko Clark. It was Sunday morning, and Jesus had been dead since Friday afternoon. It felt like a bad dream that they just might wake up from if they waited long enough. Rounding the corner, Mary Magdalene stopped so abruptly that the three women slammed into one another. Bonk, bonk, bonk. What a bizarre sight to behold. The heavy stone was rolled away from the entrance of Jesus' tomb, and on top of it perched someone. Was it an angel? Was it a person? The someone shone like lightning in a robe of blazing white. Mary Magdalene thought she just might faint. But she felt her friends behind her and heard the someone's reassuring voice saying, "Don't be alarmed. I know you're looking for Jesus, who was killed. He's not here. He's alive again. He told you this would happen." He's not here? He's alive again? It was impossible, wasn't it? They had watched Jesus suffer and die. They had seen his battered body being laid in this tomb. But here was this someone telling them a pretty incredible something. It made the women question what impossible might really mean. They had watched Jesus calm storms with his words. They had watched him heal diseases and multiply food and repair broken families and systems and hearts. He was so much bigger and brighter than their rules and words and beliefs. Was it so impossible that he was bigger than death too? So with whoops and wails of wonder, the women hurried off. He's not here, he's alive again. But Mary Magdalene trailed behind, crying and crying, a storm of feelings building in her mighty heart. Grief, joy, confusion, awe. "Why are you crying? Who are you looking for?" came a voice, jolly and gentle and oh so familiar. She turned, squinting against the first rays of the rising sun, and saw a man. Who else would be in the garden this early? A gardener, perhaps? "I'm looking for Jesus," she said, as her heart thumped and jumped. "Mary," came the voice again. And this time she knew. Is there a better feeling in the world than someone you love calling your name? Gladness filled her from head to toe as she shouted, "My teacher," and flung herself at Jesus. Because of course it was Jesus. Of course he was alive. It had seemed impossible, but if her good teacher had taught her anything, it was that nothing is impossible with God. Mary clung to her friend. The bad dream was over, and Jesus' aliveness made all her other fears and worries slide away like shadows being chased off by sunshine. Death was not the end. Oh. What other impossible things were possible? The sun rose, the birds trilled, and Jesus laughed. "It's time to let go, Mary. Go and tell my friends that I am alive." What could she do but obey? Mary went out from the garden, her grin splitting wide open. Every story Jesus had ever told her, every true name he had ever called her, all played like a lovely song in the back of her mind. Something new was happening, something wild and mysterious and so very good. Back in the city, surrounded by Jesus' friends and students, Mary, Tower of Truth, stood tall and shouted the best truth she had ever known. Jesus is risen. He is risen indeed. I knew I was going to cry. Let's join in that response to wisdom in the program. Death is not the end. Love cannot die. May we live accordingly. Yes, so this is the story of the resurrection of Mary Magdalene. Mary the Tower. That always gets me. I shared a video that you can watch on the Signal chat because she continues to be resurrected. Her her real story is still being discovered. And I love that this new kids' Bible owns that name. Just as Peter was named the rock, Mary was named the tower. And they were meant together to lead the church. And she's been wronged by history.
I was going to say, she gets such a bad rep.
Yeah,
Makes me mad.
she does. Of course, this story is traditionally told as the resurrection of Jesus, coming back to life after being executed by the state. It's a powerful story of resistance and the power of love. And I know it's probably strange to hear a pastor say this, but I think focusing on Jesus at Easter is actually a disservice. Centering his part of the story isn't as realistic for us normies, right? But Mary, when we look to Mary's part of this story, we receive a real, fully human roadmap on how to live again, which of course has been our focus the past 5 weeks. So have we figured it out yet? Do we know how to live again after death, after loss? What's that? Just keep on loving. Oh, that's good. I completely agree. Love is the answer. All you need is love. And right, what we talked about through this series, we talked about when forest fires come, the essential things of like the building blocks of life, the nutrients, the nitrogen is all returned to the soil. What you need to keep going is what remains, the essential part of life. And same is true for us. And what remains after someone dies? The love. The love still exists, right? The love doesn't die after it's been loved. And love is the only thing that you get more of when you give it away, right? So yeah, we keep loving, we keep moving, showing up. I said to a friend recently who was worrying about our ever-growing list of the weird body issues that we get as we age, right? I was like, well, you are dying, but it should be slow, hopefully, right? Because we're all dying. And sometimes it's helpful to remind yourself of like, am I dying? Well, yeah. But hopefully it'll be a slower process. Or we can be like Miracle Max, right? Anybody Miracle Max? Yeah, Princess Bride. It just so happens your friend here is only mostly dead. There's a big difference between mostly dead and all dead. Mostly dead is slightly alive. Yes. With all dead, there's usually only one thing you can do. Go through his clothes and look for change. But of course, dear Wesley was only mostly dead. And so they were able to bring him back to life because of true love, right? True love. I really want someone to let me do that at their wedding, for real. They haven't yet.
We have a church in a while moving in.
Yeah.
That'd be fun.
We've talked about this throughout the past month. We live on a resurrection planet. We're just in a constant cycle of birth, growth, fading, death, and rebirth again. The resurrection log, right? It's dead, and yet new life is growing out of it. We will feel mostly dead sometimes, like Wesley, especially in winter. We all get a little gray, right? Like, we're just going through the cycle of our planet. In the face of death, Mary, a regular human like us, gathered with others, because resurrection is a communal act. She entered into the rituals of her tradition, whatever those are. So and here's the roadmap for us, right? We get with other people. We go through the motions of the rituals. We are passed these rituals down through centuries for a reason. And when we go through the motions of them, it's like a time warp. It like opens us up to all of the ancestors who've gone through those rituals too. I remember sharing about the girl who talked about putting dirt on her father's coffin and how she felt that like cosmic connection to every other human who has buried their dead. We gather, we do the rituals, and we allow the grief and pain to move through our bodies, through the rituals. And then she embraced the new life that surprised her. Even when she could probably not fully believe it herself, she embraced it and then didn't cling to it though. Didn't like just stay there and become attached. And then she did maybe the most important thing, and she went and proclaimed that new life had come. Jesus was alive. Mary is our example on how we keep going after death and loss. Though her memory has been tampered with and her gospel that she wrote has been lost and erased, her life and legacy, her love, persists. And she is the whole reason we even celebrate Easter, right? If she hadn't gone and said, I have seen Jesus with my own eyes, we wouldn't be here. We got to tell somebody about it. When we are feeling at our lowest, mostly dead, and we go for a walk and we see something that brings us out of our, death stupor, it brings us back to life a little bit. Saying those words to somebody else is crucial for our healing and our moving past the grief. When we have the dream that shakes us, that wakes us up in the middle of the night, you tell somebody that dream, right? We don't keep it in. We have to proclaim it. We have to share it. And it brings us into the new life with it. We need those reminders from each other, that reassurance that, yes, life goes on. And then we keep going. We keep putting one foot in front of the other, and we get to discover answers to that beautiful question we heard Mary ask in this version of the story. What other impossible things might be possible? When we go through something catastrophic, when we face a death of any kind, and we come through the other side, it's like anything's possible at that point, What else could I do with now the rest of my life? What can I imagine being possible for us? Most badass nun, Joan Chittister, says, try to live so that every day is a new creation. And I think when you go through that kind of experience, like Mary did, it is like, oh my gosh, okay, another day that I get to see what else might be possible. Every sunrise, every season, every cycle, something new is happening. It's a resurrection. Something wild and mysterious and so very good happens in spring and in summer and in fall and in winter. And every morning when the sun's rays crest the horizon, something new and good and wild and mysterious is happening right here, this instant. A million electrons just circled our atoms, making a new thing, right? Ours is a resurrection planet, and we can practice living resurrected lives by joining with all of creation as we cycle through birth, life, death, and rebirth. Just waiting to see what else might be possible. So as we move from learning how to live again into living, really doing it, going out and living with the immense possibilities of our planet, of our Creator, of new life happening each day, I came across some beautiful, clearly inspired instructions from Rainer Maria Rilke, who shares these instructions, I believe, from our Creator. I didn't research it to see if he said, like, oh yeah, this was a highly inspired poem, but all of his poems feel highly inspired to me. So this is poem 59, book 1. God speaks to each of us as we are made, then walks with us silently out of the night. These are the words we dimly hear. You, sent out beyond your recall, go to the limits of your longing. Embody me. Flare up like a flame and make big shadows I can move in. Let everything happen to you, beauty and terror. Just keep going. No feeling is final. Don't let yourself lose me. Nearby is the country they call life. You will know it by its seriousness. These are our marching orders. Just keep going. No feeling is final, even the feeling of death. And so, I hope we will hear and believe this Easter that from love we come and to love we return. And I think if I had 30 seconds on a microphone to the world, that would be what I would say. Because to me, that casts aside a lot of fear. If we can believe we came from love and we will return to it, just like the cycles of our planet cycle through the highs and lows, just like the cycles of our bodies of each day. We leave the nest of love and we will return to it. So what do we have to fear? Anything's possible. And I hope together we can continue the work of reminding each other of that truth. That we return to love and everything is possible because of that. So we'll practice our rituals, we'll study our ancestors' wisdom, and together we'll live as resurrected people every day, a new shot at life. Happy Easter.
Happy Easter.
Okay. Whew. All right. Take a breath. Feel your body, even if it feels distant, even if it feels heavy, even if it doesn't feel like yours right now. In nature, nothing truly dies without becoming something else. A seed is buried in darkness before it ever meets the sun. It doesn't stay whole, it breaks. It splits open. It loses the form it once knew. And only then does it grow. Forests burn, and it looks like the end. Everything blackened, everything gone. But beneath the ash, something is happening. Seeds are opening that could never open without the fire. Life waiting for heat, for rupture, and for release. Leaves fall from trees, not because the tree is dying, but because it knows how to survive. It lets go. What falls becomes nourishment for what's still to come. Nothing is wasted, not even us. Oof. There was a time when I lost my body, not metaphorically, literally. My mind was taken from me, my thoughts weren't my own, and my body stopped responding the way it used to. Functions disappeared, words disappeared, and pieces of me disappeared. It felt like death, or something close to it. But here's the thing, I was still here. Somewhere underneath all of it, under the silence, the confusion, the disconnection, there was something untouched. Something watching, something breathing, something that could not be shut off when everything else was. My soul. Even when I was mostly gone, I was not gone. And that's the truth that nature shows us over and over again. What looks like the end is often a transformation we don't yet understand. The caterpillar doesn't become the butterfly by adding wings. It dissolves completely, becoming something unrecognizable before becoming something new. And maybe that's what we're asked to trust, that the breaking, the loss, and the moments we don't recognize ourselves are not failures, but thresholds. There are parts of us that have to fall away so something deeper can emerge. There are versions of us that cannot come with us into who we are becoming, and still something remains, always. A quiet pulse, a steady breath, a knowing that says, I am still here. In nature, even what dies gives life. The fallen tree feeds the forest, the ash feeds the soil, and the darkness holds the seed. So maybe we are not meant to fear these moments, these endings, these losses, and these unravelings, but to meet them with a different kind of understanding. That we are not just what we lose, we are also what continues, what transforms, what rises, and what remembers how to begin again. Take another breath. You are not gone, even in the moments you feel broken, and even in the moments you feel empty. You are only mostly dead, and in that mostly, there is everything. Everything needed to come back to life. And maybe that's what we forget, that even when systems fail, our bodies, our minds, our structures, or even the systems we live inside of, there's something deeper that remains. And maybe the systems themselves are not meant to last forever. Nature doesn't hold anything permanent. Everything cycles, everything transforms, and eventually everything gives way to something new. So when our systems crack, and when the ways we've been living stop working, when the structures around us begin to fail, it might not just be tragedy, it might be truth. It might be the beginning of something more aligned, more honest, and more alive. Because what cannot sustain life will eventually fail, and what fails makes room. Makes room for something different, something rooted deeper, and something that can actually hold us. So if you are in a moment where things feel like they are collapsing within you or around you, you are not alone, and you are not at the end. You're in the middle of something ancient. A cycle that the forest knows, and that the trees know, and that your own body knows. Let it fall if it needs to fall. Trust what is still here. Trust the quiet, steady presence underneath it all. You are not gone. You are only mostly dead. And even now, something in you is already beginning again.
Thanks for listening. If you want to support Church in the Wild and the work we do in striving for environmental and social justice, just head on over to our website, churchinthewild.org, and click the donate link at the top. There you can make a donation, set yourself up as a recurring supporter, or you can buy something from our Redbubble shop. We're so glad you're with us on this journey, following the Spirit through creation, adventure, and restoration. Until next time.